good to see that I could turn it around once it's in there. I kind of imagine the scenario I would be doing is chipping up into that wall, filling the whole front of this trailer. You know, most jobs, if it's not a bunch of chipping, I might be able to contain it all, rake it onto the side, and then transport the chips and the chipper back home. But still a rough sketch. Not exactly sure how I'm going to be using this yet. I'm also not sure the angle of this thing, if it'll shoot it straight down, but we'll test it out. Not sure how much I trust these little rings that I put on, but let's see.
Here we go.
All right, so today's the first time I'm really gonna put this thing to work. I tried it out on a little bit of willow, but I got this brush from a tree job I did, and I wanna see if I could send it down this bank. These guys wanna use these wood chips in their orchard and in their garden, so I wanna see if it'll clear all this brush and end up in the dirt down there where they can get it. It might be a little bit of wishful thinking. Might have to bring it down a little more. If not, I can maybe put the chipper over here, and then it'll be a shorter trip for the chips, that is, but I'll have to drag this brush downhill a bit. I took down 1, 2, 3 pretty big spruce trees the other day. I didn't film it because I was working alongside a couple of guys, and that just slows things down. But I had to climb that one, and then these two we just pulled over with the tractor. They were all kind of leaning towards the orchard, so we didn't want to take any chances. But anyway, I'm going to start by putting a couple of twigs in there, seeing how far it shoots it, and then seeing if I have to move the chipper. All right, it's not shooting it nearly far enough, so I gotta move it.
Oh boy.
This thing weighs like 400 pounds, so getting that back up is gonna be a little bit hard, probably. I'm learning that you kind of got to hold the bigger branches back by hand to give the machine a chance to catch up. Otherwise, it'll keep trying to pull it through and bog itself down. I'm sweating like no other. I'm really thinking about jumping in that pond right now. All right, so that took about an hour and a half. That includes messing around with the camera and stuff, so probably an hour and 15 minutes. And this is the size pile that we got. That's pretty big. Let's talk about chip quality. I mean, obviously it's a conifer, so there's a bunch of these little needles in here, but I'll be honest with you, I'm happy with that. A couple of long little twiggies here, but you know, I use wood chips a lot in the garden and for compost and a million different things. And I would be happy if I received this load. I mean, where there's less needles, you could see it's pretty consistent sized chips. Oops. These little circular deals are interesting. Never seen a chipper do that before. But yeah, in my opinion, these are really nice chips. And I tried to get a few shots that show how far the chips are discharged, but this is going down a bank, so that'll make them go further than they would otherwise. So you can get an idea of the size trees we did the other day. A bunch of the logs got buried. And to be clear, I did not chip all the brush that came off of these trees. A lot of it was buried. You know, they're kind of going for like a Hugel Mound terrace type of deal here, so we didn't have to chip everything that came off of these trees. You know, you can see there's a bunch of stuff here that's going to get buried. You always need a pit. No one would need chippers if we just all had pits. We might end up doing this one and this one. That one looks a little bit sad now that the other ones are gone. So I think I learned a few things to run this thing efficiently. One of them is if you have something that's like big diameter but fairly short, like 2 foot or 3 foot or something, and it doesn't have a bunch of brush on the end, it'll kind of bounce around in there if it doesn't have enough inertia to suck it through. So it helps to have something long but thin that has like some brush on the end to put in there afterwards, and it'll kind of suck that other piece through. Another thing is, when possible, it helps if you jam whatever you're chipping in the bottom. I mean, the blade is spinning this way. If you feed the branch and it hits the top, it kind of makes a smacking noise. And it sounds like that's pretty hard on the machine, probably rough on the blades too. But if you feed it along this bottom edge, it'll kind of just suck it right through, no problem, and it doesn't sound harsh at all. So I've only put like an hour and 45 minutes on this thing, including today and the day I put it together. I put some stuff through to test it out. I'm definitely stoked to finally have some type of chipper, and I think I'm really happy with this so far. It definitely has its limitations, but I think it fits my context pretty well. I mean, anything bigger than 3 inches, it kind of struggles with. It says it could do it up to 4 inches, but you kind of got to really baby it along. But especially if I'm doing hardwoods, anything that size or bigger, I'm going to be turning into firewood anyway. I have a handful of jobs coming up where I'll be using this thing, so I'll definitely do more videos on it, and probably some sort of longer term review type dealio eventually. If you're like some big serious tree service or something, it probably doesn't make sense. But if you're a little guy like me and you don't use a chipper on every job and you make firewood with the bigger stuff, I think this thing definitely has its place. Now let's see if it's impossible to get it back into the trailer. Having to pull this thing uphill out of a bad spot definitely seems like a good way to get a hernia.